The snow fell softly over Winterfell, as it always did. Jon Snow stood alone at the training yard, his breath fogging in the cold air. His sword sliced through the wind again and again, the steel ringing each time it hit the wooden dummy. He trained harder than the others, always trying to prove himself. He was a Stark, he believed, but never in name. From the window above, Robb Stark watched him. His brother, his best friend, his blood, or so he used to think. Robb had always treated Jon as an equal, even when their father didn't. While others whispered "bastard" behind Jon's back, Robb stood beside him. They shared meals, fought together, laughed at Theon's loud mouth, and dreamt of the battles they'd one day fight. But things had changed. It began the night Robb accidentally heard his father speaking with Maester Luwin in the crypts. He had come down to light a candle for his grandfather Rickard. But what he heard froze him in place. Ned Stark's voice was low and tired. He must never know. It's not just for his safety, but for the realms. If Robert ever found out, Maester Luwin sighed. It's a heavy secret to carry, my lord. He's not my son, Ned said slowly. He's Lyanna's and Rhaegar's. Robb's candle nearly slipped from his hand. He turned and ran before he could hear more. Back in his room, he sat on the edge of his bed, shaking. Jon was a Targaryen? The blood of dragons ran through him, and their father, no, not even his father, had kept it hidden all these years. Robb didn't sleep that night. He didn't sleep the next either. For days, he kept his distance from Jon. He was afraid he'd say something, or worse, treat him differently. But Jon noticed. One evening, Jon confronted him. "You angry with me?" "No," Robb said too quickly. "You've been quiet, distant." Robb forced a smile. "I've just been thinking." "About what?" Robb hesitated, then walked to the window. The cold air blew in, and for a moment he considered telling Jon the truth, but then he saw Jon's face, the confusion, the trust in his eyes, and Robb made his choice. He turned back. "About the wall, about the Night's Watch," Jon looked down. "Aye, I've been thinking about that too." Robb didn't know what made him say it, but the words came out before he could stop them. "Don't go," Jon blinked. "What?" "Don't join the watch," Robb said. "You deserve more than a life of black robes and cold nights," Jon scoffed. "What life do I have here? I'm a bastard, Robb. No inheritance, no future. The watch is all I've got." "No," Robb said firmly. "You have me. And Winterfell. That's enough." But Jon shook his head. "It's not enough when everyone keeps reminding you that you don't belong." Robb wanted to scream the truth at him. "You do belong, more than you know." But he couldn't. Ned had lied for a reason, a dangerous reason. If King Robert found out, Jon would be dead before sunset. So Robb made a vow to himself that night. If Jon couldn't know the truth, then Robb would protect him from it. He'd be the shield between Jon and the lies. He'd carry that weight alone, even if it broke him, even if it cost him everything. The morning sun cast pale light across the snow-covered courtyard as Jon stood before the stables, his bags packed, sword strapped to his back. His breath came in slow, cold clouds, but his heart beat hot with anticipation and sadness. He was leaving Winterfell, leaving everything he had ever known. Ghost, his white direwolf, padded beside him, silent and watchful. Jon reached down and scratched him behind the ears. "Just us now, Ghost," he whispered. "The wall won't care who our mother was." Behind him, footsteps crunched in the snow. "You're really doing it, then?" Robb asked, stepping forward. His face was tight, unreadable. Jon gave a half-smile. "Aye, I said my goodbyes." Robb looked over at the gate. "Did you say goodbye to Arya?" "She's been crying since last night." "I did." Jon looked down. "She gave me her needlework. Said I'd need it for mending my cloak." Robb chuckled, but it faded quickly. "You sure this is what you want?" Jon sighed. "It's not about what I want. It's about where I belong." "Who told you you didn't belong here?" Robb asked, stepping closer. "Father?" "No," Jon said. "Not with words, but I see it in his eyes. I hear it in Catelyn's silence. I feel it every time someone calls me Snow. I'll never be a Stark." "You're my brother," Robb said. "In every way that matters," Jon nodded. "That's why it's hard to go." Robb wanted to tell him everything. That he wasn't a Snow, that he wasn't even a Stark, that he was something far more dangerous, far more noble, far more alone. But he couldn't. So instead he said, "Then stay." Jon's jaw tightened. "Robb, no, listen to me. You say you don't belong here, but you do. More than Theon, more than half the lords who bend the knee to father. You're brave, strong, loyal. Why throw that all away for a black cloak?" Jon looked away. "I need to find who I am." Robb stepped in front of him. "Then let's find out together. Stay. Fight beside me when the time comes. Winter is coming, Jon. We'll need every sword." "We'll need you." Jon shook his head. "You don't understand." "I understand better than you think," Robb said, voice rising. "You think the wall will give you peace? It won't. You'll trade one prison for another, one uniform for another. You think the world will forget you're a bastard just because you wear black." Jon's eyes burned. "At least there I can earn respect. At least there I can be something." Robb lowered his voice. "You already are something." "You're my brother. That means more than any oath." Silence fell between them, heavy and raw. Jon looked at Ghost, who sat quietly by his feet, sensing the tension. "I can't stay," Jon said finally. "I already said the words in my heart," Robb exhaled, shoulders slumping. He reached into his cloak and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. "Then take this." Jon took it and unwrapped it slowly. It was a wolf pendant carved from dark wood and bone. It wasn't polished or grand. It was rough, shaped by hand, clearly made with care. "I carved it the night before you said you were leaving," Robb said. "It's a Stark sigil for you." "So you remember?" Jon stared at it. "You made this for me?" "Aye," Robb said. "Because no matter what anyone says, you are a Stark. And if you ever doubt that, you look at that and remember. Your brother believed in you, even when the world didn't." Jon clenched it tightly. "Thank you," Robb forced a smile. "Don't go dying on the wall, you hear me?" Jon laughed, but his voice cracked. "Only if you don't die in some stupid war." They embraced hard and long. Two boys, caught between names, fate, and truths they didn't fully understand. But Robb wasn't done yet. As Jon walked out the gates with Benjen Stark, Robb watched from the tower, and then, when no one was looking, he went to the rookery and penned a raven, a message for Lord Commander Jeor Mormont of the Night's Watch. In it, he begged him to keep Jon close, to protect him, to guide him like a son of Stark, even if he wasn't in name. He didn't say why. He didn't sign it as Robb Stark. He signed it simply, "A brother who cannot speak the truth, but can still send warnings." Then he released the raven. The wall rose like a frozen god in front of Jon Snow. He'd heard tales all his life about the towering ice, the fierce cold, the brave men in black who guarded the realm. But standing there now, looking up at the endless wall of ice that stretched into the clouds, Jon didn't feel brave. He felt small, cold, forgotten. The Night's Watch was nothing like he imagined. The moment he arrived, the truth hit him like a sword to the gut. The men weren't noble warriors or honorable knights. They were thieves, rapists, murderers, cowards hiding behind vows. Only a few seemed worth anything, like Samwell Tarly, who trembled at his own shadow, and Gren, who swung a sword like it weighed more than him. Still, Jon trained hard. He fought harder, and soon the others began to fear him. "You're not like the rest of us," one man grunted after losing a sparring match. "You're a lordling." "I'm not," Jon snapped. Amos Snow, but even he didn't believe it anymore. Every time he touched the pendant Robb had given him, he remembered who he really was. Not a bastard, but a brother. Someone who mattered to someone. One night, after another long day of training and empty meals, Jon sat alone in his chamber. Ghost curled at his feet. The silence wrapped around him like the wall's shadow. Then came the knock. He stood quickly. Benjen Stark, maybe? A raven from Winterfell. But it wasn't either. It was a tall, older man, dressed in black leathers with a grey beard and sharp eyes. He looked hard, tired, and far too clever to trust easily. "Lord Commander Mormont wants a word," the man said. Jon blinked. "Me?" the man grunted. "You deaf, boy?" He followed silently, his heart thudding. Ghost padded behind them, alert. The Lord Commander's chambers were simple. A large wooden table, a few maps, a burning fire. But there was strength here, quiet, commanding strength. Jorah Mormont looked up from his writing. "Jon Snow!" "Lord Commander," Jon said with a small bow. Mormont gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit," Jon did, uncertain. Ghost lay down beside his chair, eyes fixed on the old man. "You've been doing well," Mormont said. "Too well," Jon frowned. "I'm just doing my part." "That's not what concerns me," Mormont said, leaning back. "You fight like someone trained by the best. You ride well, you read. You think before you speak. That's rare here. I had good teachers in Winterfell." "Yes," Mormont said, staring at him. "Very good ones." A silence stretched between them. "Do you know why I called you here?" Mormont asked. Jon shook his head. The old man opened a drawer and pulled out a small scroll. "This arrived 2 weeks ago." Jon's breath caught. "Was it from Robb, Ned?" Mormont didn't hand it to him. He held it tightly. It was unsigned. No name, but the words spoke of you. Said you were to be protected, that you were more important than you knew, that I should guide you like a son. That's not something I take lightly." Jon's mouth went dry. "Who sent it?" Mormont raised an eyebrow. "I have my suspicions." He leaned forward. "I don't care who your mother is. I don't care if you're a Snow or a Stark, but I do care about what you could become. The Wall needs men, real men, not just swordsmen, leaders." Jon swallowed hard. "I don't know if I am one." "Then become one," Mormont said. "You'll start shadowing me, learning how things work. It won't be easy, but if you want more than a sword in your hand and cold food in your belly, then prove you're worthy." Jon was stunned. "Why me?" "Because someone out there believes you're worth it," Mormont said. "And because I believe it too." Ghost gave a low growl then, almost as if he sensed something in the air. Jon reached down and placed a hand on the direwolf's head. He nodded. "I'll do it," Mormont smiled faintly.
"Good, now go.
"And remember, here at the Wall, the past may not matter, but the future, it always does." As Jon stepped out into the cold night, stars gleaming above the Wall, he felt something stir inside him. He didn't know the full truth. Not yet, but someone was watching over him. Someone who cared, and one day he'd find out who and why. But first, he had to become something more than a bastard. The wind howled through Winterfell's towers, colder than usual, as if the gods themselves were whispering warnings through the snow. Robb stood alone in the godswood, sword in hand, facing the old weirwood tree. Its red eyes watched him like it knew everything he carried. He drove his blade into the ground and knelt. "Protect him," he whispered. "Wherever he is." He hadn't received word from Jon since he left, but he trusted the message he sent had reached the right hands. Still, the silence ate at him. The Wall was far, and the world was cruel. But Robb didn't have time to dwell on his fears anymore. Since King Robert left Winterfell, nothing had been the same. Ravens flew in almost every day now. Talk of tensions in the south, of whispers about Ned Stark's role as Hand of the King, of Lannisters and their games. Robb didn't understand all of it, but he understood enough. War was coming, and Winterfell had to be ready. Maester Luwin had begun involving Robb in more and more meetings. Lord Rickard Karstark had sent men to train near the northern roads. The Umbers were arming more than usual. Something was shifting, and Robb could feel it in his bones. He was only 17. He wasn't meant to lead, not yet. But his father had gone south, and someone had to wear the Stark name with strength. Catelyn hadn't helped. Since Ned's departure, she had grown cold again. Distant. She barely looked at Robb unless something urgent demanded it. She never spoke of Jon, not even once. And whenever Robb tried to bring up his brother, she changed the subject or simply walked away. One night, Robb finally broke. "You hate him," he said, standing at the long table as his mother pored over raven scrolls. Catelyn didn't look up. "Who?" "Jon." Her hand froze. "He's not your concern anymore. He made his choice. He made a choice because no one gave him another," Robb snapped. "Because you made this place feel like a prison." She looked up, eyes cold. "You know nothing, Robb. I know enough to say it wasn't his fault. He didn't ask to be born. And yet he was," she said, voice trembling. "And every day I had to look at him, a walking reminder of your father's betrayal. You may love him like a brother, but I was expected to live under the same roof with him. To raise him like my own. Maybe you should have, Robb said sharply. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Catelyn stood, lips trembling, eyes fierce. When you become a lord, Robb, you'll understand that duty and love don't always walk side by side. You'll learn what it means to protect family even when it hurts. Even when it breaks you. Robb clenched his fists. I already know, he thought. I'm doing it right now. But he said nothing. Later that week, another raven arrived. This one from King's Landing. Ned Stark had been arrested. Charged with treason. Robb read the message 3 times. His hands trembled. He could hardly breathe. His father, honor-bound, loyal, quiet Ned, was in chains, and the world had truly gone mad. He stood in the great hall that night, staring at the carved direwolves around him. He felt their eyes. He felt their judgment. He felt the weight of Winterfell pressing down on his shoulders. He knew what he had to do. He called for Maester Luwin, Theon, Sir Roderick, and the bannermen close enough to be reached in a day's ride. If they were going to march south, they would do it as Starks, as wolves. But as he gave his orders and summoned the banners, he felt a deep fear crawl into his gut. Jon, if war came, Jon would be stuck at the wall, cut off, alone, and worse if anyone in the south dug deep enough. If someone uncovered what Ned Stark had been hiding all these years, Jon's life wouldn't just be at risk. It would become the center of a storm that could burn kingdoms to ash. Robb clenched the wolf pendant he had carved, the twin of the one Jon carried. I'll fight for you, brother, he whispered, even if I have to burn this world down to do it. The wind at Castle Black never rested. It scraped across the ice like knives, howling through the cracks in the stone, crawling into Jon's bones. But that morning, the cold wasn't what made him shiver. It was the look on Sam's face when he came running across the yard, a pale and wide-eyed, clutching a rolled raven scroll in his shaking hands. Jon, he said breathlessly, you need to read this. Jon took the message, his hands already cold with something worse than snow. It was from King's Landing, from the realm of liars and thrones. He read the words slowly. Lord Eddard Stark has been arrested for treason. The world went still. He didn't feel the wind anymore. Didn't hear the Black Brothers training. Didn't hear Ghost's low growl beside him. He just stood there, staring at the ink that turned his world upside down. My father, he whispered. Sam looked at him with pity. They say he tried to take the throne from the queen, that he tried to crown Stannis Baratheon. Jon crumpled the scroll in his fist, rage rising in his chest like fire. That's a lie, he said. My father is the most honorable man in Westeros. He would never betray his king. Sam didn't reply. He didn't need to. They both knew King Robert was dead, and a lion now sat on the Iron Throne. Jon stormed up the stairs to Lord Commander Mormont's quarters, Ghost on his heels. The guards let him in without a word. Mormont looked up from his map table as Jon entered, face like stone. You heard, he said. Jon nodded stiffly. Is it true? Mormont leaned back. The raven came this morning. It came from the capital itself. Signed by Queen Cersei's hand. Then it's a lie? Maybe, Mormont said. Maybe not. The South plays a different game than the North. Jon paced the room, fists clenched. I need to go. I need to ride to him. You swore an oath, Mormont said sharply. I swore to protect the realm. Jon shouted. Not to sit on my hands while my father is imprisoned by snakes. Mormont stood. You're a man of the Night's Watch, not a Stark of Winterfell. Jon looked up, his jaw tightening. What if I was never just a Stark? The room went quiet. Mormont narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Jon hesitated. The words were crawling up his throat, and he didn't know why, but something had been gnawing at the back of his mind. Something that had begun the night the Lord Commander received that strange, unsigned raven. The one about him. Something Robb had said when he gave him that pendant. You're more than you think. I don't know, Jon admitted. But I feel like there's something I was never told. Something important. Mormont didn't respond right away. He sat slowly, folding his arms. Secrets are a dangerous thing. Jon Snow, especially in a world that kills people for having the wrong name. Jon looked away, his chest tight. I can't just stay here while my father, then be worthy of helping him, Mormont interrupted. Not as a boy who runs, as a man who rises. Jon looked at him, heart pounding. You've earned the trust of your brothers. You've shown leadership, courage, discipline. That's why I gave you my attention, not because of your name, because of who you are. Jon swallowed hard. You want to help Lord Stark, Mormont said. Then stay alive. Stay smart. And stay loyal until the moment comes when you can make a difference. Jon wanted to argue, but he didn't, because deep down he knew Mormont was right. Storming off wouldn't save Ned Stark, but becoming something more might. As Jon left the chamber, he passed the rookery. A thought gripped him. He sat down at the small wooden table and began to write a letter to Robb. He didn't know if it would reach him. He didn't even know what to say, but the words came anyway. Robb, I heard, and I know this world is falling apart. You once said I deserved more than a black cloak. I'm trying to prove you right. I'm staying, not because of oaths, but because I still believe in the man who raised us both. I'll fight for him my way. The old bear says secrets are dangerous. Are there secrets I should know, Robb? If so, tell me now. Because I feel them in my bones. I feel them in my blood. He signed it. Jon Snow. Your brother, always. Then he tied it to a raven's leg and watched it fly off into the endless grey sky. He didn't know what the truth was, but he was done running from it, and far in the north, beyond the wall, something stirred. The banners of House Stark flapped high in the cold wind as Robb rode at the head of his army. A sea of men from the north, all following the direwolf sigil stitched onto their cloaks. His armor felt heavier than usual, not because of the weight, but because of the burden it now represented. War had come. Robb had left Winterfell behind, his mother, his little brothers, everything that had once made him feel like a boy. That part of him was gone now. Dead in the snow, the day the raven came with his father's name written in chains. He would free Lord Eddard Stark, or die trying. But even as his men sharpened swords and made campfires under southern trees, Robb's thoughts were pulled northward, toward a single letter crumpled in his saddlebag. Jon's letter. He hadn't opened it at first. For a day he just stared at it, as if touching it would break him. But he couldn't ignore it forever. He had finally read it last night, by firelight as the Northern Army camped on the banks of the Trident. Are there secrets I should know, Robb? Because I feel them in my bones. I feel them in my blood. Robb had barely slept since. Jon was asking for the truth, and the truth was a blade Robb didn't know how to carry anymore. He remembered his father's face the day he found out, the weight in his voice, the fear in his eyes when he told Maester Luwin that the secret must die with him. But Ned Stark had left for King's Landing, and now Robb was the one holding the lie. You'll wear yourself out riding like that, Theon said as he pulled up beside him. His smirk was weaker these days, quieter. Perhaps the weight of war had finally dulled his arrogance. Robb glanced over. Could say the same for your mouth, Theon chuckled. Fair. They rode in silence for a bit before Theon added, You've been quiet. Too quiet. Is it about your father? Robb didn't answer right away. Then he said, It's about Jon. Theon raised an eyebrow. The bastard? Robb shot him a warning look. All right, Theon muttered. Your brother. What about him? He sent me a raven, Robb said. He knows something's off, Theon frowned. Off how? Robb looked ahead, voice low. He knows there's a truth no one ever told him. He's asking if I'm the one who'll finally say it. Theon leaned back in his saddle. Well, are you? Robb didn't answer. The truth tasted bitter every time he thought of it. That Jon Snow wasn't his brother by blood. That he wasn't a bastard. That his real name wasn't Jon Snow at all. He was Jon Targaryen, and if anyone in the south found out, they'd kill him, Robb said out loud. Theon frowned. What? If they knew who he was, who his parents were, they'd send assassins. They'd burn the wall to the ground just to get to him. So don't tell him, Theon said. Simple. It's not simple. Robb snapped, pulling his horse to a halt. The other riders ahead paused, turning back. Robb waved them on and took a breath. "It's not simple," he repeated. "He deserves to know who he is. But if I tell him now in that raven's court, we could lose him. The realm's on fire, Theon. Targaryens don't survive fires. They get blamed for starting them." Theon shrugged. "Then don't write anything. Tell him nothing. Let him stay safe at the wall." Robb looked down at his gloves. His hands had started shaking again, like they always did when he thought of Jon alone, surrounded by enemies and shadows, and with no idea of the storm he was born from. He pulled the letter back out from his saddlebag. He read it again. "I feel it in my blood." Robb turned it over, then reached for a fresh parchment. He dipped the quill in ink, paused, and then began to write, not everything, but enough. "I cannot speak openly, not yet. But know this, you are more than the name they gave you. Our father lied to protect someone, not to shame them. Your blood is stronger than even you know. But the truth is a weapon, and you must not draw it until you're ready to wield it. Trust me, as I have always trusted you. I will write again when it is safe. Until then, do not dig. Not yet. Stay alive. Stay smart. The world is changing, and you are part of something far bigger than the wall." He signed it, Robb, your brother. "Until the end." Then he gave it to the Raven Keeper. "Fly fast," Robb whispered, "and fly unseen." As the bird soared into the fading light, Robb turned back to his army. The men were mounting. The banners were rising, and Robb Stark was no longer just a boy in a castle. He was the young wolf, and he was marching to war. The raven came at dawn, its black wings sliced through the cold mist as it landed on the stone ledge outside Jon's window. Ghost stirred at the sound, rising from his curled sleep with a low growl. Jon opened the window and untied the small scroll, heart pounding. It was from Robb. He recognized the handwriting immediately, sharp and steady, like the man his brother was becoming. He unrolled the parchment, fingers shaking with anticipation, hope, and fear. "Jon, I cannot speak openly, not yet. But know this, you are more than the name they gave you. Our father lied to protect someone, not to shame them. Your blood is stronger than even you know." Jon stopped reading for a moment. The wind outside seemed to hush, as if the world was listening too. He read the rest, slower now. "But the truth is a weapon, and you must not draw it until you're ready to wield it. Trust me, as I have always trusted you. I will write again when it is safe. Until then, do not dig. Not yet. Stay alive. Stay smart. The world is changing, and you are part of something far bigger than the wall. Robb, your brother." Until the end. Jon sat down hard on the edge of his cot, the letter trembling in his hands. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It wasn't just a whisper in his blood. Robb knew something, and he was warning him, but what was he supposed to do with that? He wasn't a lord. He wasn't a knight. He was a man of the Night's Watch, a sworn brother, a sword in the dark, and yet every line in Robb's message hinted that his life wasn't meant to end at this wall, that his role in the world hadn't even begun. "More than the name they gave you," Jon whispered, running a hand through his hair. "What are you hiding from me, Robb?" Ghost came to his side, resting his massive white head on Jon's knee. Jon sighed. "You don't know either, do you?" That day he trained harder than ever. His sword was like fire in his hand, even in the snow. He blocked, slashed, dodged again and again. Men shouted his name across the yard, some in respect, others in resentment. He didn't care. The doubt in his chest was louder than any blade, but the wall wasn't waiting on his identity. It had its own shadows creeping in. That night the warning bells rang. Jon was already on his feet before Sam even reached his door. "Another ranger," Sam gasped. "They found a hand." "Just a hand. No body." Jon strapped on his cloak and followed the chaos to the gate. Men muttered. Some laughed nervously, but most were quiet. The hand was black, frozen stiff, fingers curled like claws. It was dropped on the table like meat, and it didn't bleed. Jon stared at it, his stomach turning. "Something's wrong beyond the wall," said one of the senior rangers. "More than wildlings. The White Walkers," someone muttered. Jon turned. The words had come from Dolorous Ed. He was pale, eyes wide. "They're just stories," another muttered. But John didn't believe that anymore, not after what he'd seen in Ghost's eyes lately. That animal tension, always on edge. And not after the dreams. He hadn't told anyone about them. Visions of snow turning red, of figures with glowing blue eyes, of swords that shattered like glass. He didn't understand them, but he believed them. That night, John sat at the top of the wall, the stars spread like cold fire above him. The world stretched endless in all directions, but something in the dark woods below felt closer than it should. He pulled Robb's letter from his pocket and read it again by moonlight. Do not dig. Not yet. But something was already rising, something no one could hide from. Maybe I was never meant to stay here, John whispered. Ghost growled softly beside him. John looked down into the black forest. His brothers were dying out there. Rangers were vanishing. Strange things were crawling through the snow, and John could feel it, in his bones, in his dreams, in his blood. The wall wasn't just a post, it was a line, and something was coming to cross it. The flames roared higher in the Godswood of River Run as Robb Stark stood over a blood-soaked map, the air thick with smoke and tension. War had changed him. His boyhood had died in the snow, and now, with his sword dripping and his banners torn by wind and battle, Robb was the young wolf in truth, feared, followed, and alone. News had come. His father was dead, executed by the very crown he once served. Robb didn't scream. He didn't weep. He'd done all that the night he burned the Lannister banners before his men. Now, only ice remained. But it wasn't just grief eating him, it was guilt, because now he knew he wasn't just marching for vengeance, he was marching to protect a lie. John had written again. I don't know what you're protecting, Robb, but whatever it is, it's already tearing at me. I see things. I feel things. There's something inside me that doesn't belong to the wall. My sword feels too small for what's coming. Ghost senses it too. You say to wait. But how long can you run from who you are? Robb read the letter a dozen times before he finally sat down to write his answer. But the paper remained blank because he didn't have the answer. Not anymore. He had fought battles, crushed armies, gained bannermen. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw John standing at the wall. Not as a bastard in black, but as something more. As a king in the cold. If John ever found out the full truth, the real truth, that he was the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, born of love and not shame, everything would change. He would be heir to the Iron Throne, a threat to the North, a threat. To Robb himself, would he still call me brother then? Robb wondered. Or would the blood of dragons burn away what we were? But the time for hesitation was gone. Whispers came from the south, of Stannis claiming the throne, of Renly raising banners. The realm was fracturing, and the raven from the wall brought darker news still. White Walkers. They were no longer stories. John had written only a single line in his last message. They're real. Robb. And they're coming. Robb clutched the letter in his hand as he stood before his war council. We ride to Harrenhal by nightfall, he ordered. And we send word to every northern house, not just about the war here, but about what's coming from the north. White Walkers? Great John Umber grunted. Children's tales. They were tales, Robb said coldly. Now they're prophecy, and we'd be fools to ignore it. The room fell quiet, and Robb, for the first time in weeks, didn't feel like a boy pretending to be a lord. He felt like a king, far beyond the wall. John stood atop a frozen hill, his breath fogging in the dawn air. Ghost growled beside him, low and steady. Below them a body twitched in the snow, pale, eyeless, and wrong. Another ranger lost. Another man found dead then, not dead. John stepped forward, sword drawn. Longclaw, the Valyrian steel blade Lord Commander Mormont had given him, gleamed in the pale light. The white lunged. John didn't flinch. He struck once, clean and fast, and the creature fell still. Steam rose from the corpse like black smoke. Ghost stepped over it, sniffing, then backing away. John turned his gaze north, toward the shadowy lands beyond the wall. There were more coming. He could feel it in his blood, in the fire of his dreams, in the howl of ghost at night. He wasn't meant to stay behind a wall. He was meant to lead through it. And suddenly, Robb's letter made sense. "You are part of something far bigger than the wall." Jon looked down at Longclaw. He wasn't a Snow, he wasn't just a Stark, he wasn't even just a Targaryen. He was a sword waiting to be drawn in the darkness. And winter had arrived. He turned to Sam, who stood a few paces behind. Panting and pale, "We ride for Castle Black," Jon said. "We warned them." And then he looked toward the wall, where the sky had begun to darken with unnatural clouds. "We ride for the realm." Back in River Run, Robb sent one final raven. "If they ever find out who you are, they'll try to kill you. But if you don't find out who you are, the world may die instead. Choose when to become the truth, Jon, but know this: when the time comes, I'll stand with you, your brother, until my last breath."